And I believe we are live, rock and roll. So, ripping another week here with the State of the Network show. This is our second week. We'll see if we can handle getting into a full month, but so far so good. Neil, Dave, rock and roll time.
Hey.
What's going on with you guys?
Not a lot. It's bank holiday here in the UK, so everybody's off work,
Oh,
chilling.
for
So,
Christ's sake!
Yeah, it's a day of rest, isn't it? Everyone's just
yeah,
relaxing and enjoying the sun
That's
whilst
how
it's still here.
Americans get ahead. We never take vacation. We just work till we're exhausted. And unlike the Euros, who are like a little bit more civilized and like, hey, we're not going to work until we're cooked. Cool. So let's see. We got a bunch of different stuff to hit here. Let's start off with Dave. You want to talk about what happened last week in kind of Helium data, where we can actually prove something happened versus everyone yelling about their hotspot being up or down.
yeah. So I've had a quick look over the data for the last week since we spoke last week, and to be honest, it's been pretty stable. Rewards minted day by day have been reasonably stable. We've not had too many issues with missing challenges that we've had before due to the seed node problems. I think things have been pretty stable. I'm just really excited, looking forward to light gateways and seeing what happens to those missing challenges. All of a sudden, if we get twice the amount of challenges, the network's going to feel a lot healthier for everybody.
Cool. So I mean, I guess the good news is that things are boring right now.
The good news is things are boring. Yeah.
Okay.
I just submitted our first report to the foundation, covering April.
Yep.
So I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on that before I publish it.
Cool.
So there's some interesting data there going back to the beginning of April, but it's around the seed nodes really, and the issues with challenges dropping down to 10-20%. But other than that, yeah, I think things are looking good.
Ripping. I see we got folks signing on. We got Albert and 619 coming on, SBS, Matthew. So rock on. I'm glad you guys are joining us. Hey, what's up, Jeffrey? I seen you guys all kind of comment recently on the YouTube video about the data credits not replacing POC, but we'll get into that in a second. Neil, what's going on with you, dog? What's new?
It's the same. We're almost ready to launch the tracker app, so Trackpack's almost ready to launch. And I put some posts on Twitter yesterday, so I'd hope
Yep.
if you haven't seen it, go and have a look at that. It's trying to spread the word about using data on the network as much as possible, and trying to change the conversation into one where it's let's actually use this thing we build.
Yeah, and that's Trackpack, trackpack.io, right? And no K in the pack.
Yeah,
Okay, I think I've got
no
that
K in the
somewhere.
pack. Yeah.
I got that somewhere here where I can throw it up on the screen. Yeah, this is an interesting piece because I'd put out this video this week about, hey, data credits are not going to replace POC earnings. Doesn't mean that POC earnings are going to go away, but it's just there's this kind of mistaken idea in folks who just didn't have as much exposure as the rest of us that maybe data credits would take over for earnings, for POC earnings, and everybody would continue to earn just for having a miner in their window. And that's not true. Um, the fundamental promise of Helium is that data is cheap, and so we are now making this move over to a network that is going to get used, and your rewards are basically going to be on how much the network gets used and how you can monetize that service. And that's really, I think, what you're talking about, Neil, is like, hey, we're making this transition to using this thing.
Yeah, and it's not something we talk about on the Discord too much because it's obviously talking about price. But in a market like this, we can say it. At the moment, price is speculation.
Yep.
There's no data to back that up, and we need data so we reach this equilibrium, burn to mint equilibrium, where data drives price. So even if you hodl now and then data ramps up, it doesn't matter if there isn't data in your area. The HNT is worth more. And that is non-speculatively driven. So that's what we mean by this. If we can move the data conversation on, everyone's HNT would be worth more.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. So I think on top of that is the fact that the network is where it is right now, and that the earnings are going down, and it's starting to get stable. I mean, temporarily stable. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a super smooth transition. I think that Helium is like it's run by these geniuses, but the problem is so complex. I'm expecting to see some turbulence for a couple weeks, and so if you are kind of paying attention to this, just know that for the next, let's say, month, we should expect some like big ups and downs. And if you're cool with that, then you're not going to be flustered at all. But you can also expect to see Reddit and Facebook blowing up with where's my Lambo and why isn't my hotspot working? So, yeah, but it's super good news to see there's so much coverage on this stuff. Let's dig into this idea. This was kind of the first big thing that I wanted to hit here after the Trackpack stuff. About what happens if everyone's hotspot gets turned off, right? What if I forget what they're calling it, the great unplug.
They always threaten it, don't they? But it never comes.
So, can one of you guys talk me through why that is a fucking silly idea?
Well, it's a silly idea, first of all, because I won't be turning mine off, so all the rewards will come to me.
Right.
But yeah, it's a bad idea because not everybody will turn their hotspots off. So it's just going to mean that people are going to get more aggravated about other people earning more, because all of a sudden there'll be 100 people earning 50,000 HNT for the day, where 750,000 have turned their hotspots off. So from that perspective, it's a fruitless endeavour to do that. I don't really see the logic behind it.
No, and I think what folks think is that it's a centralized network, centralized around their specific hotspot, and it's not. There's 700,000 hotspots in the network, and one of the things that makes sense to me, but you just may not have thought through if this is your kind of first time with Helium, is that you're thinking, oh, if I can get enough people to turn their hotspots off, that'll cripple the network. And that's not how it works, right? As you turn your hotspots and your buddies' hotspots and everyone else's hotspots off, the rewards just go up for everyone else. And if you guys remember, the pressure to deploy hotspots when there are only 70,000 or 7,000 on the network is so incredibly high that there is 0% chance that we are going to drop anywhere below, I don't know, Neil, what do you think? 200,000 hotspots? I think we're probably not going to drop below 500,000 online, but
yeah, I just think it's miners capitulation. It's just this miners getting out because it's not profitable enough for them. But then the ones that are serious about this will double down because one, there's cheap units on eBay, and two, that they know that what they earn in a day doesn't matter. It's the amount of tokens they earn and how long they hold it for.
Yep.
So it's going to happen. But then you've got to look at places like New York, London, Paris, every city centre everywhere. You could lose half of them and it wouldn't make a difference.
I think you could lose significantly more than half in those densely populated areas, and
you can walk,
coverage would be the same.
Yep. You can walk around those areas and have 100 hotspots hear your sensor. This little sensor in your pocket can be heard by 100 hotspots. That's ridiculous. It's over dense. So I think those people are feeling it the most because their transmit scales are so low. But in theory, we kind of want them to turn their hotspots off and sell.
Yeah. Although let's be
or move them.
Yes.
Move
them. Yeah.
That's the big play here. Is I want to be really careful because I certainly got in early enough to be lucky. Like there's nothing I did that was super smart in the beginning other than stumble on Helium and go for it. So there is an element of luck here, and I got in early. There's just the facts of life. But I want to make the encouragement that if you have a hotspot in an overly dense area and your earnings have really dropped, you've got two options. And I think one of them is way better than the other, but it's more work. Option one, which I think is the worst option, is put your hotspot on eBay. Pull it out. Maybe it's not worth your time to do it. You don't want to mess with this thing, and sell it, right? And option two, which I think is the way better option, is to put your hotspot in a place where there aren't other hotspots and where it provides useful coverage. And in the long run, that is going to be the thing that allows you to kind of be as successful as possible in the HNT earning game. So that way you kind of stay included in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of dense areas that we've just talked about. But if you look at the Helium Explorer, you can see vast areas where there's no coverage.
France.
And there's vast areas, and you only need to move probably 10 kilometers out of the city before you find a spot that's available, and you'll still connect to the majority of those hotspots in the city. 10 kilometers is it's not a long way to get POC coverage. So we see people talking of over 100 kilometers, and if you've got a reasonable setup, a reasonable antenna, moving 10 kilometers out of the city or even 50 kilometers out of the city, you can bridge them between two cities. And that's one of the setups that I've got. It sits between two major cities in the UK, and I can hit 4 or 5 major cities from that location. So and it's out on its own. You provide the coverage in that area, and again, when we start using sensors, then you'll be in a position where you're the only person vying for those data credits in that area, rather than having 100,000 people in London all trying to hear Neil when he walks past Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, when the giant walks.
It's unbelievable. Like one of our founders has taken one of these to the beach this weekend, and there's one hotspot on the beach, and he walked the length of it, and this one hotspot serving this massive area, and you can just see a well-placed hotspot can cover this, uninhabited land just from being placed well up a hill. So, if you can get a few nice sites like Dave's or, top of pubs on top of hills or whatever you can do, you can really make some difference to your transmit scale and your earnings.
Yeah.
Now you need a waterproof version, Neil, for when Nick and I go swimming again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to come back out now that the weather's nice. Let's see. So one thing I'm seeing in the chat is this idea that the network size shrinking, Matthew Marcus, that the reduction in the size of the network is going to be a problem. So think about it this way, Matthew, is that there's 2.5 million HNT that gets distributed every month right now, that gets chunked into 3 big chunks. 1/3, actually 2/3 of those go to hotspot owners. If people turn their hotspots off and the network size gets reduced, each hotspot just gets more of that HNT. So the size of the network actually the coverage of the network won't change. It's just the density that will change. And we're overly dense right now in cities. And so what needs to happen for it to be useful from a tracking sense is a lot of the hotspots in the cities need to move outside along highways into the country to track those things. But that brings us to the piece where you've got also kind of 2 options with earning. Is that you can continue to follow earning HNT by deploying miners or hotspots, and you could do what Neil is doing and what I'm doing and what Dave is probably going to push into doing, is to provide a service to the Helium community or to the community at large using Helium and charge for that service. Right? Neil's doing that with Trackpack.io. I'm doing that in part with Lake Street Software, which runs Helium Vision. We've got a couple products coming out that we're talking about in the Gristle Crew call tomorrow with Nick over at Lake Street Software, where we're talking to farms and deploying sensors on those farms and using the Helium network and then charging US dollars fiat to do that. And so that's where things start to really add up, is that you're providing a service that is super cheap for you, but you're earning in local fiat currency, which is, depending on where you are in the crypto world, can be pretty important.
Yeah, just to highlight that point about the reduction of the numbers of hotspots. If we head back to the great HNT outage of the 16th of November last year, we saw effectively all hotspots go offline. And when one hotspot came back online, it got 400 HNT for sending a beacon. And that's all that's going to happen. If people start turning off, those rewards are going to get redistributed, and this guy in this particular instance was hugely lucky because he was the only one on the network. There has to be 2 to tango, so somebody heard it, but he got 400 HNT for a single beacon. So that just gives you the extreme example of what will happen if you decide with your group of friends to pull a plug. It's not going to serve you.
No, and there's a dude on Twitter who had said that Helium had arbitrarily turned off or decreased earnings in November. And I think that's what he was talking about. And to me, this highlights kind of the problem that Helium has, is that they are a bunch of super smart people working super hard, but they don't have the time to explain what they're doing right now, which is kind of what the 3 of us are doing to the best of our ability. But there is nothing that I've seen in a year and a half or whatever it is of watching Helium to indicate that they don't think the system works or that they're arbitrarily pulling levers or twisting knobs. They are working as hard as they can to make a giant complex system work, and it's on the rest of us to understand it. And so when I see stuff like, oh, Helium arbitrarily did this, no, they didn't. Right? They want this thing to work just as much as you do.
Yeah, you only have to look back 9 months ago when we were literally getting GAs every few days for what seemed like an eternity, and
Yep.
with that, all hotspots went offline and were resyncing. Everything is so much more stable now. I've not seen anything like that for months. Yes, we get software updates, but the impact of those has been minimised. And the guys have done, they've done a really good job in making sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. Yes, there are going to be issues. It's software, it's complex. But in general, again, if you go back to the data and look at the number of HNT minted per day and the targets, if you look, it stays pretty close within its boundaries. And we know that there's mechanisms in there that if it drops for a few days, it'll gain for a few days, and over a rolling period of, I don't know, was it 50 days or something? The average should work out. At the end of the day, it's all maths in the background in the software, and it works pretty reliably.
Yeah. Yeah. Is with Helium Analytics, which is your product, Dave, or your service, are you on the weeks yet or months, or we're still working on getting the days sorted out?
So the days are sorted out. I'm just waiting for our developer to
He's
get out of the
busy.
dungeon.
He's
He's
busy.
busy. He's busy. He's helping Neil with Trackpack. He's just moved house and his wife's having a baby, so I can cut him a little bit of slack. But I've got some monthly views, but they're not very polished at the moment. So I have been working on them in the background. It's just visualizing them that hasn't been done yet.
Dig it. And then to hit Matthew Marcus's point again about network growth. Okay, I'm seeing that clarification. Is the reduction in network growth? Is that the network doesn't need to grow super fast anymore, right? There was a point where we had to get through past enough a certain amount of hotspots or some number of hotspots where there was like a belief in the system, and then once you pass that, there's almost nothing that will happen to decrease it back there, right? Just because that earning pressure is so high as the number of hotspots go down. So even if the network doesn't grow, as fast as it was, the world is finite. There's some point where it's gotta, the whole thing has got to slow down.
I don't see many over the water yet.
Nope, not yet. And then I see Leon B asking about Trackpack. So it's just Trackpack with no K in the
Yeah.
pack.
I just sent him a message. I would have replied to that Matthew Marcus's comment. Why is mum and pops in the middle of nowhereville going to suddenly operate a hotspot if the economic model's not there? Well, there's two factors. One is the kid wouldn't use it. So, if you walk in a big store like Walmart, they've got people counters on every exit and entrance. You can start doing things like monitoring how many, when the floor times are busy or when your best periods are. But if they're a store, they could have things like for refrigerators, they could monitor all of their refrigerators. And then if they can take that model and sell it and then sell it to other businesses in the area, suddenly you have hotspots that do proof of coverage. So they're paid to use those sensors. And they can also be selling that. And we're talking to a lot of businesses like that at the moment that they're realizing that their product can become a tracked thing. And that can be a whole new market for them to earn money to build, better services and better products. And I think that's what's going to attract these new areas is these technologies that are built on helium.
Yeah. No, that's the next big thing. And if folks want to kind of tune in and rock that, then that's the way to kind of stay in helium. Let's see. I see mine, which is, I don't know if I can call you my favorite, teller of cheaters, but you're certainly on every YouTube video I put saying that I helped you learn how to cheat. So there's your moment of fame, dog. I don't know why you think that I'm so helpful to you, but you probably just
on a high level scale we do. I think quite a few of us in the community now have dug enough into the data to know how big the issue is.
Yep. That's
it's just how you define what is cheating. We're not talking someone that's just asserted a hotspot 200 meters away.
Right.
But as an overall level, it's not as big as people think. And a lot of it's on the deny list.
Yeah. Neil, if you had to kind of guess, and I think we did this before last time, like a percentage of the HNT that's going to cheaters, what do you think that would be in general? Is that go ahead.
On the number of HNT, I wouldn't know, but the percentage of the network that's doing it, around 50,000 hotspots.
Okay. So 50,000 out of whatever, 7, 8,
15%.
Look at that fast math. I cannot do that in my head that fast.
I can't do that. I'm not that fast either. Don't worry.
Yeah, I reckon around 15%. 50,000 it isn't 15%. It's probably around 10% of those that are actually earning at the moment, which is, I think it's gone up to 550,000 something that are actually earning on a daily basis. I know when I looked back in January or December, January, I was pushing sort of around the 20% mark. It's certainly coming down, and certainly there's an awful lot of work going into finding and squashing these people that are gaming at a high level.
Yep.
As Neil said, it depends where you draw the line. And looking at the data again, I can see that some hotspots are witnessing 175 beacons a day, which is obscene. You look at the distribution and you can see that there's maybe 10 or so that are earning a lot from witnessing a lot. But at the end of the day, that's 10 hotspots. Really, we should be targeting the ones that are thousands of hotspots earning 0.1 HNT per day, earning the average, and discouraging that sort of behavior. Yes, the witness stuffing, it's a bad thing, but it doesn't cause a major issue to the overall profitability of everybody else.
Dig it. I see AP's got on there. What's going on, dog?
Hey,
Hey.
Yeah.
How's that door sensor?
Yeah, how's that door? And you got your new Gristle King shirt. I saw something from Joseph Waldstein or Waldstein Joseph. Does density matter if you're in a relatively high location? It's a good. So yeah, it does, right? So let's think about kind of two different scenarios. One scenario is you're on top of a building in the middle of a city. You're on the highest building in the city. And the city is super dense. You're still going to earn more than if you were down low, just because you're going to witness more beacons, and witnessing is 70% of your earnings.
As long as you size your antenna appropriately, and how high you are, because if you size inappropriately, you'll miss the majority of the city, and you'll be looking at the suburbs.
Yeah, although remember that dude that came on? He's another UK guy, and he had said he put 9 dBIs on everything, and that had worked super well for him.
Jeez.
So, yeah,
I use 3 dBi antennas indoors in attics. I don't put them outside or anything. I mean, if you're trying to do 50 kilometers, then yeah, you're 100% going to need to be outside. But generally, if you're just doing miles around, then you could be really easy with it. You don't need a 9 dBi. You just need,
that's an interesting point. I wonder if he was using 9 dBIs because they had limited resources as far as gateways, or what we would call hotspots, where our resources as kind of the Helium community is, we're basically unlimited number of gateways, so you can do a lower gain antenna.
Yeah. So when I first started, because of the density of hotspots around, like in Derby, which is a city near where I live, there was maybe 2 hotspots in the entire city. So we went with a 6 dBi, simply because we wanted to get as much coverage as possible. Now there's 50 or 60 in Derby, and we could reduce down to a 3 dBi, and it have absolutely no effect whatsoever. You've got to size appropriately for your conditions, and I think, Nick, you use 3s now, don't you, up on the mountain?
Yeah, 3s on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to work pretty well. AP, I'm going to send you a link and see if I can bring you in if you got time.
Hey,
I saw that.
Show us the shed.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see if I can find you on Discord. What else is going on, Neil? Tell me about what you think Helium's going to announce today. What you're promising everyone.
It's going to be 5G news, I'm pretty sure. But you notice who's invested in Helium, in Nova, sorry, I should say. Dutch Telecom, Liberty Global. These are all people, Nokia. These are all people who own Spectrum in Europe. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some 5G news about it being global, not just a US thing, and we can finally join the party and test these things out. Awesome. That's what I'm hopeful for. But
which would be big news. I mean, let's dig into that. So the 5G stuff is really confusing to people. Right now, as it stands in, Bobcat just sent me their 5G whatever bobber unit. I've got to set it up at the office and see how that thing works. But there's kind of 2 options, and one of them is like the not useful option, which is where we are now, and then the other option is the insanely useful option, which is what will happen, or what may happen out of this announcement. And maybe there's a third option where we do the roaming. So the not useful option is that no one is going to put a new SIM card in their phone right now to go onto Helium's 5G network right now because it's so spotty and you wouldn't be able to use other networks, right? So that's kind of how it works right now, if I'm understanding it right. If Helium makes an announcement today and says like, hey, we're standing up our own 5G network, then maybe you could switch out your SIM card in the future for a Helium SIM. Am I getting this right, Neil?
Yeah, if they become a provider of spectrum, then yes, you could buy SIM cards and use it.
Yep, which would be rad. And then the third thing is if Helium strikes deals with T-Mobile or AT&T or whoever, and their users are allowed to roam onto the Helium network, right? Like I'm with Verizon. If Verizon says, yeah, we can roam onto Helium, then all of a sudden that's a big deal for Helium. But I mean, maybe this is a much, much bigger deal than I thought it could be because, and that's why they needed all the money that they raised, is to become their own telecom network.
Yeah, and that's what I think's coming. I mean, they've been talking about nothing but Nova's been hiring 5G staff. And why would they particularly hire 5G staff if they're just creating the blockchain? You know, I think the signs are there that they're going to be a provider.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. Might want to
it's all guesses here, but
yeah. Let's see. AP, I sent you a link on Discord. You should be able to see it if you want to come in. All right. If HIP 55 goes live, relay is no longer a thing. Do you guys think the cheating clusters in China will revive? I don't know. This guy, Mine is like a big cheater. He loves cheating and talking about it. So maybe you'll be able to revive yourself. So, unknown.
Yeah, there are some tools that have been developed that you can see gaming on a very high level, and you can really deep into it. You know, just like crowdspot.io. You can see these cheaters happen instantly. There are teams working with a deny list that will eventually run their own lists. That will just update nice and fast. So we're really getting on top of it with hit 40, and then it's letting POC catch up, so POC can catch it automatically, so we don't need the deny list. So it's working really well.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that the deny list at the moment it still allows hotspots on the deny list to make challenges. I suspect when we move forwards, that those challenges that are going to be done by the validators now. No more rewards at all for those on the deny list, which will be really good. Again, exactly.
Finally, at the moment, the challenger has to have the deny list and be running stock firmware, but there's no choice but to with validators. So you know the occasional POC was getting through, and it won't the second like hotspots go live. So it's going to be good to see.
Yeah. How do you guys think that thing is going to be smoother? Are you a little more optimistic than I am? The transition to light hotspots.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm wrong and I'm an idiot, and people are like, you didn't believe enough, but I remember
I've tested the light. Yeah,
go ahead.
I tested the light gateway software for such a long time now as a data only hotspot, and you just don't have issues. You know, the only thing that could happen is that there's SD cards corrupt, or it's not got power, or it's not got internet. So we're finally going to be in that true plug and play world, you know. As long as it can dial out, it's fine.
As long as the validators can handle the load. I mean, I know they're all high spec machines, but all of a sudden they're going to be doing an awful lot more work.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that, you know, that it's always been said about that with like hotspots, this is the focus at the moment. But after that, I think it's really important that we talk about overstaking, partial staking from wallets, so we can increase the validators numbers, because it was originally going to be only consensus members to handle all of this, but it's not. It's any validator now. So if we can increase the validator numbers, then it would help with the overall load that the network would have.
Okay. Well, special guest.
Hey.
Inbound. We'll see. Let's see if he comes in. Let's see if I can sort this thing out. And then while that's happening, there we go. What's up, Adam?
Hello.
How you going?
Hey.
Hey.
Hey. Let me see if I can put an
The UK are taking over.
Yeah, God, you guys.
Yeah, we're running this thing.
Don't try this again. We saw what happened last time. So let's see. I saw something else. I see a bunch of you guys on the chat, and I'm trying to keep up, but I probably won't be able to. Jason Maskell, Drew, good to see you from down under. You got some super cool stuff with waste to energy, so I'm excited to see what your news is. Matthew Marcus, thanks for kind of keep jumping in and letting us know with these comments and having these questions. And then Jeffrey Lim in Singapore. Let's actually, before we talk about the Mysterium stuff, I'd like to wrap with you guys just for a couple minutes on like sensor use cases. So let's talk about two things. What is the first sensor someone should buy if they want to go through the process of onboarding it on a console and learning how Helium works? Not necessarily using it yet for a business, but what's the easiest sensor that you guys can think of to onboard?
I think
for me, it would be a mapper.
Well, I think
yeah.
well, it's either mapper or the Dragino door sensors. I think the mapper is probably the easiest because you've got cargo. You can quickly just test that out with cargo.
Yeah, another good one's a temperature sensor, because you can just take a reading of the room that you're in and just learn about, how to display that data in a graph. Because it's not just, at the moment, it's not just sensors you have to learn. You have to learn how to draw that data in a dashboard and design that dashboard. So something simple like one reading is good.
Yeah, before you get there, you've got to tackle, as Nick said last week, with the integration, the decoder and the console, and then actually get it into a service that you can present your data, whether that's Google Sheets or 𝗚𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗁 or whatever it is. So that there is a bit of a learning curve there. But once you've done it with one sensor, essentially, then you can do anything. Any sensor, all you need to do is be able to get the sensor from the data through the console and to your chosen data analysis software. So
let's talk about like
you can make them complex.
Let's talk about the kind of process. So if you're a beginner and you're seeing this and you're like, hey, I believe in what you guys are saying. I want to participate in the Helium network beyond mining, and I want to get a sensor. I would start off with anyone like a mapper or the LHT65, any of the super simple sensors. But here's how it's going to work: is you're going to turn the thing on. You're going to have a Helium console account, which I think is just console.helium.com. You get, I think it's 10,000 free data credits when you sign up, something like that.
I think it used to be. I think it got lowered.
Okay, but whatever, it's super cheap. To put data credits on those. So you'll burn some HNT from your wallet to the console to get data credits. So now you have the data credits that pay for that data to be moved around. And then you've got to tell console what sensor you have. So you've got to tell, hey, I've got an LHT65. And the way you do that is there are 3 complex, insanely pain in the ass long numbers to put in. There's a dev EUI, an app EUI, and an app key. And you can be like me and not read the instructions and hand type those in, like reading off of, like 4-point font on the device. Or a lot of them come with like copy pastable stuff. So you copy paste that in the console, and then maybe you turn the device on and you'll start to see like these little red dots march across the screen in console. And then you know that your device is connected to the network. Am I getting that right so far? It's been, I'm always wondering if I'm doing it wrong, because half the time, like my first try, things don't work.
Yeah.
Yep. And then from there, once it's on console, now you have to send it to an integration.
Yeah.
Yep. And that integration is kind of the next hard piece, is you can use a pre-built integration, which might be on DataCake or like Neil's. Is that what yours is, Neil? That Trackpack is an integration? Or am I not?
No, it's a full process. So we manage the devices and data. Yeah, they just scan a QR code and they're using it. That's the idea.
So the easiest way to get into it is to buy a tracker from Neil.
Yeah. Yep.
I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of why we did it, to make it easy. You know?
Yeah. Oh, Adam, what do you got?
I think we missed the part. There's a decoder in the middle between the integration and the device.
Yeah. And it's like all this stuff for those of us who are not kind of steeped in this is like, what do I need that for? Why should that happen? But the decoder decodes the data coming off the sensor for the integration. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I'm having problems.
It comes in like a
good.
It comes in like a hex-based form, I think.
Yeah.
So then the decoder kind of works out what the hex is and then converts that into something readable that an integration can read.
Yeah. I see you got your Gristle King shirt on. Right on. It got out there. Nice. Representing.
It's pretty quick, actually.
It was incredibly. It got to the UK faster than it got to, I think, a place in Philadelphia. So sometimes FedEx drops it. Okay. And I think all of you guys have, or at least Neil and Adam, you guys have videos on how to use sensors, right? How to onboard them, do all that stuff. somewhere on the interwebs or instructions? I'm seeing someone is saying AP.
Yeah.
There's an AP video.
There might be a video. Yeah, I think there was. There's a couple that I've done. I did a quick interview, I think, with someone from the console team just to show how this all works. That was a while ago. I think there might be an instruction kind of video how to quickly integrate something there as well.
Yep.
But that's on the Helium YouTube.
On Helium's YouTube. Okay, cool. Take it. And then I see Leon's got a way better version of doing it. Is you just take a picture with your phone and then use Google's whatever magical lens to convert that number.
Yeah.
That's way smarter than what I've done. So good job. I'm seeing some stuff in the comments too about folks saying like, hey, this is going to be too difficult. Is that, yeah, you are on the leading edge of this new rollout, right? This is not at the point where it is like Apple iPhone easy. And so for those of you who want to get into this thing, like this is the time to do it and to learn it and to know that like right now mistakes are forgivable. In a year, you won't get away with the kind of level of expertise that say I have right now or that Neil had 20 years ago or whatever. But right now you can come in and you can be an idiot and learn this stuff and you're going to be ahead of 99.9% of people. And that, I mean, that's certainly my play is like, oh, I'm going to learn this as fast as I can and then roll it out. But that's the cool thing about Helium is that it's making this really complex stuff accessible to semi non-geeks.
Yeah, and I think if you go back to where we started the conversation today about people getting involved and HNT isn't necessarily where you're going to get the money from. If you can get involved now and really start to understand how these things work, you're going to be in front of 99.9% of the people in the world, and you can be that expert to create Trackpack. Or create 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘀𝗁 or whatever comes next. You can literally you can literally do that.
It's more important that you have the use case. You know,
Yeah.
I can tell a farmer what he wants, but you know, if he doesn't come to me and say this doesn't affect my bottom line, it's useless. You know, I've launched a pointless thing. You know, and I've just taken one industry that helps and gone with it, and you can do the same thing.
We've been out in the country this weekend, and it's lambing season in the UK, and all the lambs are running around following their mums, and they've all got numbers painted on the back. But there's a use case there. Yeah. There is a use case there, and we were walking, and one of the lambs had escaped the field. And it was only because my brother-in-law was around, he managed to shepherd it back into the field. But that lamb could be lost. And that's a loss to the farmer. So if he's got geofences around, he can get alerted when his animals disappear from his fields. That anything like that you can think of where you can find a use case, and if it's novel to an industry that you're in, then you can really get some cash going. And another thing, smart cities. A lot of cities already have LoRaWAN distributed around the city. So our local bus route, all the timetables that are updated, they're all done over LoRaWAN. I dread to think how much they're paying for the data. If you were to approach your council to explain the benefits of Helium and how cheap it is, I'm sure there are many use cases there where you could offer a consultancy to big corporations and again take the focus away from HNT and more into the fiat that you can earn from being an expert.
Yeah, no, there's many ways to skin many cats here. Adam, what are you working on, dude? I haven't got to hang out with you or talk to you too much lately.
Yeah, well, I've just been playing around with or today I've been playing around with a light ETL and the blockchain node as well.
Okay.
And also like reading that data from a Postgres database, so I can visualize some of like the data in.
Right, and you're like an ultra geek. I remember from a while ago, like you've got like you've been studying this stuff. You love this stuff like 1,000 times more than I'll ever understand it. But when you're saying like, where do you think you're going to be able to use what you're kind of playing around with right now? Like, how does that get up?
I'll be using. I'm using this at the moment for some work around like figuring out who's gaming and
Got it. Super
nailing
super
those
cool.
guys, basically.
Yeah, right on. Good for you. That's super helpful. Okay, cool. And so you had come in. We were talking about kind of going back to the cheating stuff, and you thought that the amount. Do you have like a guess on how much HNT is getting, let's say, lost to gamers?
I think it's difficult to quantify, but I think hotspot wise, I personally think it's around 30k hotspots.
Okay.
I left
It's
myself
about, I think,
some margin of error
3-4%.
there. That was
Yeah.
the only thing. I would have said 30,000, but I just wanted to give that little bit of margin just
Sure.
to say we don't know everything, right?
Yeah, and I guess this is
And I think
good.
I think that number is probably a little bit less because out of the data sets that I've been looking at, it's like you can't say 100% that those hotspots are definitely gaming all the time. So there's always going to be some innocent person in that that big list. So you try and reduce that number as much as possible. So yeah, I reckon it's probably less than 30.
I think as time goes on, there are more people looking at different aspects of gaming, and when you consolidate all those, the false positives come down. So I think it's really important that people are still contributing to this, and we're still sort of only 3 or 4 months in really to identifying these gamers. And as much as we do, it will continue. It can be very profitable, but as long as there are people working in the background, I think we can keep on top of it.
Yeah, and we've got some odd stuff here in this world of kind of just being on the internet. There's a guy or girl, I don't know who mine is in the chat, but 𝗪𝗵𝘁 has been super vocal about saying, hey, I'm cheating. I've helped, I think he said I helped Deeper set up their cheating network. And so it's like we have this weird dialogue with the entity that everyone is really upset with is right here on YouTube and is super excited about what they're doing. And so, they're kind of asking for help with it. But one of the questions they had is what's going to happen to the denied miners in the future. And I think 𝗪𝗫𝘁, you had something where you were buying deny listed miners and running data through them. There's some scam you were running. And there's like part of me that doesn't want to give it any attention. There's part of me that's just like, hey, what are you doing, dude? I want to understand how you're understanding the network so we can make the whole thing healthier. So yeah, does that make sense to any of you guys to buy a deny listed miner and run data through it? Or is there something I'm missing on that idea?
It'll be the challenge thing, the challenge bug. So they'll be buying off deny miners because they still make challenges, so they can then target who that challenges, so they can make it target their own hotspot and then more.
Okay.
So, but that will change this with lights and the hit 55 targeting. So.
Okay, so that scam is going to be able to run for another week or two, and then it'll be done. Yeah, interesting.
It's one of those things, gaming. We just got to be so careful about what we say, because the second you say something, then the techniques change.
Yeah.
But there's so many teams working in the background. There's so many people focused on this, like non-stop. You wouldn't believe. But they're just very aware if they make themselves known publicly that there's problems. Yep. So there's certainly people have had problems doing that. So they're very much like in some secret little club, off in the backgrounds in the shadows doing this. But if you look at the PR releases on the deny list, you'll see that there's like weekly updates going out all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. It's a good balance between kind of shining light on what they're doing and also saying like, hey, like some of this stuff has to be just kept secret. If you give all the keys out, then everybody has access to everything. So
yeah, exactly. I think it's even more frequently than weekly. I think last week there was, over the last couple of weeks, there's been 3 or 4 in 1 week updates to the deny list. So it's quite rapid, some of them, but obviously there's a lot more to catch and put in that list. But the amount of work at the moment to get them in is quite manual tasks. So the tools that are being developed at the moment help get that into the list quicker and easier.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Maybe we should just do a show just on gaming. Neil, Network Bits wants you to give a rundown on HIP 22. Is that a joke, or am I missing something, or is that something new that we should be talking about?
I don't know. I mean, it is something that I've always wanted. 22 enables the fact that we could have DIY miners again.
Yep.
So we could just buy the one the one LoRa card with a security chip in it, and that's all secure boot and everything, and it reads the signature every time. The difference there is like the security chip's in the LoRa card, so it would only ever sign things that it heard physically. So you could replay something to it and it would still hear it and do something, but you couldn't just say, here, sign this random bit of information that's a fake witness and stuff it in. You know, you just can't force it to hear things too well. So it moves the security chip on there, and we can then build our own hotspots. We just buy the LoRa card, so we could choose our own hardware and set it up in our own software stack. It would just be running the light gateway software, and we could run our own management tools and just have a more secure network. But there's also this idea with that HIP22 that if you had a HIP22 concentrator in an area, you could support non-HIP22 cards, so non-HIP22 DIY hotspots, because you would have a point of reference that you can trust. There's some trust in that hotspot. So it would enable us to not rely on manufacturers and start doing fun things like community firmware, you know, have a much quicker reaction to things when we need it.
Wow, that's cool. That'd be rad. Let's let's do one more thing on this kind of anti-gaming piece, and then we'll move on to maybe the dual mining and come back to anti-gaming if we need to. Is 619 OTA is asking, can we ban the megahex down in Mexico? And I think it's an interesting piece, because the way I understand that the anti-gaming policies or anti-gaming strategy is it's all got to be programmatic. None of it can depend on a human looking at something and saying like, oh, I don't like those guys, so I'm going to ban them. And so there's got to be a programmatic way to see if a group is cheating. And it might seem easy for us to see it just as humans and be like, oh, well, that thing's forming a perfect star. And maybe there's something on the gaming side where they're like, hey, when we see a pattern that, you know, levels up the suspiciousness of it. But as far as I know, there's not like a programmatic way to see the pattern and then immediately say that's definitely a cheating hotspot. Because what we don't want is that someone accidentally makes a pattern or makes a pattern in farmland or whatever, and they get dinged for cheating when they're providing useful coverage and doing a good job.
There's a lot of I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot of work going on around graph theory, and the data that you can get out there will give you a probability kind of score,
yeah,
based off what that hotspot's doing and what those hotspots are doing as well.
Oh, cool. So it's happening.
Which gives us good metrics. Yeah, which gives us good metrics to kind of do that. But whether it can be done on chain or it have to be on the deny list that is then a part of HIP40, then yeah, it's a different matter. But
in some cases, it is very easy just to eyeball something and say that looks suspicious, and 9 times out of 10 it is. But the process has to be gone through. The data has to be looked at to prove that it is suspicious. You can't just look at it and say, oh look, somebody's made a circle that looks like the Death Star,
yeah,
which was one that I saw back in December, and say yes, that should definitely be on the deny list. You have to look at all the aspects of what we know about gaming and the different flags and put them all together and say, okay, yeah, this is going on the deny list. And as I say, 9 times out of 10, it's those that look suspicious that are suspicious. But in some cases, you know, they are legitimate. You get some crazy people that draw crop circles after all, you know.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see. I'm seeing Philip Velkov talk about this being a business. I think, Philip, you kind of missed the first part of the convo. And Philip's point, if I'm Philippe, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, is that I had stated that Helium isn't designed to make you magic money from the air, and the money that we used to pay for these miners didn't come from the air. So it's obviously an ROI, or as I've been corrected, what is it?
AHR?
It might be HR, is expect. Like you want to get your money back. And I think, Philip, the harsh truth there is that none of this stuff was a secret. None of this stuff is even difficult math. Is that as more and more hotspots come on the network, there was never any expectation from those folks who took the time to read the white paper and understand the network that there was going to be an endless amount of magic money, right? There was the expectation at the beginning, but it is super clear that if you divide the same size number by bigger and bigger numbers, the outcome is smaller and smaller. So
in terms of H&T.
In terms of H&T, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so there is a distinction there between H&T and fiat that that there is a corresponding multiplier, and that multiplier is quite small at the moment, so it's at the front of everybody's mind. But you only have to look at something like Bitcoin, sitting at $30,000 at the moment per unit. That's the dream, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Philip's got another one. If you weren't sponsored or somehow working for Helium, you would not be shilling the network this hard.
I wish.
For the
Shill.
record. Yeah, for the record, I am certainly not employed by Helium or sponsored by Helium. I don't think they've given me any money. The Helium Foundation has given me a grant. That's probably the closest I've come. I don't know about you.
I've begged for HST, but they've never given me it. So there you go.
And I think this idea.
I think all I've got is a hoodie. A my mod hoodie.
Yeah.
That's right. I did get a hoodie. So I mean, it's this thing like shilling the network is, it's not really what we're doing. Is I'm trying to help people understand what I'm seeing in front of me and share that opportunity, because that opportunity is so big in this world of using IoT. And certainly, those of us who got in early were lucky, but I think the biggest opportunity is yet to come. So I'll probably leave that one alone for now, and move on. Okay, Cyber Farms, good to see you on here. I know you're doing stuff in Utah. You're doing some earthquake stuff. You got some, looks like military locations. I'm curious about the military as well. They're pretty suspicious of any kind of outside technology, but it seems in some cases that Helium could be super good. And I know I've talked to some folks over in Ukraine who've been thinking about using Helium and how they use it there. So could be kind of cool. And then 𝗪𝗵𝘁 Coin. I don't know if you're the same dude who's helping me on Twitter, but there's a guy who's helping me with these. I think it's going to be like embarrassingly ignorant. He wrote some Python code that I can use, or some code that I can use through Google Colab, and I'll publish a blog post on this, where you put your hotspot address in, and it performs the statistical test to help you understand if your hotspot is above or below the network average, so that you don't have to guess or kind of hope. Pretty cool stuff. But he's talking about
so over time, isn't it?
Over time, yeah.
Rather than on a daily basis.
Right. I think he's set it, well, maybe he set it up for like a 30, 60, and 90 day, and maybe there's a 7 day as well. But he did a t-test and some p something or other and something else. It's just like, oh my God, a whole nother thing to learn. So cool. Super cool. What else we got? We got a couple minutes. Oh, have you guys seen this Mysterium stuff? Where people
Mysterium's, yeah, we checked it out a while ago actually. I brought up a VPN over there on some notes. It was an interesting little product.
Okay, and let's see. So Mysterium is like Deeper, but it's an open source project.
Yeah, they run their own blockchain and things. No, I say that it's on the Polygon chain, I think it is. Okay. And just a VPN. It's a nice little Pi-friendly VPN that you can run up from home. And you earn some cryptocurrency from doing it. It's pretty much Deeper, just not deeper.
Right, and it goes to, I think, Neil, it goes to your point about running different other mining things on your hotspot. And I don't know if people are running this on their router that's connected to their hotspot, or if they're running it on like a data-only hotspot where they have more access to it. And I'm trying to remember who was telling me about running Mysterium. I think it was in the GK Discord recently. But does that sound like it? Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like I have a DIY hotspot, so it doesn't matter what software I run on it, right? I can choose what software's on there. So I could put a Helium hotspot on there, and I could put a Mysterium hotspot on there. Yep. And not stress the thing. These things aren't, resource intensive when they're not synced to the chain. Yep. So I think, maybe in the future that we can, utilize these full hotspots to do something a bit better and keep that decentralization going. Yeah. And maybe spread another project just as well,
Yeah.
Room for it.
Yeah. No, there's certainly plenty of room. I saw something from Sean Chudhari about Pollen. Pollen is another 5G crypto project, kind of a lot like Helium. And he's asking, will Pollen's new project somehow be adopted by Helium, a quicker path to 5G rollout? I don't know. I thought Pollen was like its own private 5G network, mostly for tracking vehicles. I'm not sure if there's going to be a collaboration out. Do any of you guys know anything about that?
No, but there's a lot of people speculating for Pollen to exist in the future. They're going to have to do something with Helium. So. Yep.
Okay. Dig it. And then 619 OTA is asking, can I run a Mysterium node on my hotspot once light hotspots come? Am I
If you have
understanding?
access to it, sure. If you have access to it, sure you could.
Right. And what would that
You
that
just
take, Neil? Is that like something a normal person can do, or do you have to be kind of atom level
you
geeky to
just
figure
you
it out?
just have to have SSH access to the box, and then you install one package, and that's it. That's it. Same thing with the kind of port forward in, but that's it. You could do that if you have access.
Okay. Cool. So some stuff to look into if you want to level up a little bit of geekdom. I know SSH for me was like, what is this thing when I first found it, and now it's like, okay, I think I understand it. Like you connect into this device and you can run some commands that I typically don't understand, but just copy from somewhere else, and they usually work and occasionally break things. Right on. What else you guys got? I got Michael Allen, new contractor coming. So, I mean, what would you guys say to someone who just found out about Helium? Like, what would your advice be if they're just starting to put up hotspots? Where would you kind of point them to, or have them think about it?
Your videos normally, isn't it? And your website. Learn about the antenna and what a good placement looks like. I always used to send people straight away to your, a rough guide to Helium placement, just so you understand the basics, And at the moment, you have to take everything you get with a pinch of salt and wait till May 11th. Half of everything you do is going to fail.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I see Elmo's on here, and Elmo is let's see, I think you're Elmo on Discord, Dennis S. Pollen is going to neutral host, the same as Helium. Huh. Okay, and they've got a different approach. I'm just reading through the comments here. So Dennis, we'll have to have you on so you can explain that, because folks like me, we need some time to understand all that and figure it out. And then 619 OTAs, when's the rack dashboard coming? Do you guys know of any third-party dashboard providers that are going to start to lay their dashboard on top of any hotspot?
Never doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the first to say it. I thought I'd let Neil say it this time.
And Nebra's doing some stuff. I think I heard it. Well, I'll leave where I heard it out. But Nebra's doing is the most active manufacturer on keeping the network clean. If I'm remembering that right, that's pretty close. So even though they have this really hated name and they really screwed up on delivering hotspots, the guy who runs it, Aaron, is kind of long-term dedicated to making sure the Helium network stays healthy, which I know for a lot of you is going to be really difficult to understand. You're going to throw a lot of hate my way for saying that. But I think long-term we're going to see Nebra probably really contribute to the health of the Helium network, even though in the early parts of it, they did a fair amount of damage on the marketing side, just making it look like a shit show. And it just a series of mistakes is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, most of their software is open source. They're open. They've got an open source design for a LoRa card. Everything they're doing is really for the community, but they were just very bad at delivering an under-spec project. And it's half their fault, half the project's fault. No one realized that you were going to need all this RAM. No one realized that these pies were going to get stressed so much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a bit of future thinking and a little bit more. They made some decisions that they had to because of stock levels and things, and it's just paid off badly for them.
Yeah.
The new units are a lot better, but the software that's been developed by Nebra has always been good. And the open source, and you can really easily go and log a bug if you find one and get it fixed. But they really care about the network, but they've just got bad name from people's experiences.
First, we're going to try and get Aaron on here, and then we can all get to the bottom of it.
Call him out. He's got to come on. Yeah.
Come on, dog. Let's see. Adam, Jeffrey's got a question. I think that is right up your alley. How do I pitch network security to a business that might want to use Helium, since Helium is a public network and data transfer through a stranger's hotspot? I get this question all the time. I would love to hear your take on that.
So all the data from a sensor side of things is encrypted all the way along. I think when you get to console is where it goes out of the realm of, if you can create your own console, so you can still have control of your own data there and the way it goes through it. But personally, and from what I know, is it's encrypted end to end near enough.
And how strong is that encryption? I remember hearing early on it was super strong, but obviously that's not a technical term.
Super strong. I couldn't tell you.
Honestly, I'm not too sure myself, but my knowledge of LoRaWAN.
I remember 𝗪𝗏 saying if if you could hack those data packets, you'd be working for the NSA. Like you wouldn't be messing around with LoRaWAN. That was how it was explained to the kind of normal me.
It's all encrypted.
Good.
If you've got the free keys that you put into console to set up your device, then you can decrypt those packets. I think it's just you only need one of those keys because it's a private key. And if you've got that private key, you can decrypt the traffic as it's going over the air. But without that, it's near enough impossible.
Okay, so it's like, if you got the key to a house, you can walk into it. If you don't, you can't. Although it's much more secure than a key to a house. I had a dude, he was one of my early clients. He lives here in San Diego. And he has apparently some videos on YouTube that show him picking locks really quickly. And he told me about this. I'm like, I bet you're full of shit. Let's see if you can get into my house door. And I had a lockpick kit from another lifetime's work. And I was like, here, take this thing. And I thought he was going to be fumbling. He was in my house in like maybe 9 seconds. It was scary. It was like, holy smokes, I've got to protect my stuff with crypto or some better lock than whatever's on there. But pretty amazing stuff that people can do when they know how. Okay, I think we are right at 10 o'clock. I want to make sure we keep these things right about an hour or within 30 seconds. So, guys, thanks a ton for coming on. Ripping, I will see you guys next week for State of the Network. For the folks who are watching, if you want more on Gristle King stuff and sensor use, the Gristle crew is meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific. That's a paid membership. You can come on and talk to Nick Huff, who's going to be telling us about what Lake Street Software is doing up in Boise with farmers, saving them probably close to $1 million. So that'll be pretty darn exciting. Thanks, guys. Any last words? No,
we're good.
We're good. Follow everybody on Twitter. Rock and roll. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. See you next week.
Bye-bye.